A New York State Assembly member named Linda Rosenthal has introduced a bill in the New York State Assembly to mandate COVID-19 vaccinations. Now, before anybody freaks out because I'm talking about vaccinations, I am not here to tell you to get the COVID-19 vaccine or not to get the COVID-19 vaccine because I don't care what you do. I don't care. It's your decision. It is not my business. This conversation is not about the efficacy of vaccines or the risks of vaccines or the wisdom of vaccination in general or in particular to COVID-19. That is up to you because again, I don't care what you do. But I do care when the government acts like tyrannical monsters and tries to force us to get vaccinated whether or not we want to. The bill is New York State Assembly Bill 11179, and this is what it says. The legal jargon comes first, but just keep listening. They say, once the United States Food and Drug Administration's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research and the New York State Clinical Advisory Task Force have approved the safety and effectiveness of a COVID-19 vaccination and promotion and distribution plans of such vaccine have begun pursuant to the Department's COVID-19 Vaccination Administration Program. If public health officials determine that residents of the state are not developing sufficient immunity from COVID-19, the department shall mandate vaccination for all individuals or groups of individuals who, as shown by clinical data, are proven to be safe to receive such vaccine, end quote. It continues. Any individual who has received a medical exemption from a licensed medical professional shall not be mandated to receive the COVID-19 vaccine and shall be excluded from the requirements of this section. The bill concludes, this act shall take effect immediately. So first of all, you will notice there is no opportunity for exemption for religious or philosophical reasons. So unless the government tells doctors which medical exemptions are allowed, and then doctors tell you which medical exemptions the politicians allow, you'll be forced to get it. So let me repeat the tyrannical part. If public health officials determine that residents of the state are not developing sufficient immunity from COVID-19, the department shall mandate vaccination for all individuals. Please notice how vague and all-encompassing this is. What is sufficient immunity in the minds of these politicians? They don't say. What standards would be used to determine sufficient immunity? They don't say. Who would be forced to get the vaccination first against their will? They don't say. What's the enforcement mechanism? Jail? Strapped to a gurney and injected against your will? They do not say. In other words, this is an arbitrary, unlimited power grab subject only to the whims of the same kind of politicians who ignore the science and shut down our schools, who ban outdoor dining, who prohibit you from going to church and then violate their own stay-at-home orders. If that doesn't terrify you, I don't know what will. And where does this end, by the way? What is the limiting principle? If politicians can view your medical record and force you to undergo procedures whether you want them or not under penalty of the law, why would it stop here with this one vaccination? Do we have any privacy, any autonomy over our own bodies? Or are we all subject to the whims of politicians and public health officials who can force us to undergo medical procedures if they determine they want us to? Again, this is not about the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine or the wisdom of getting vaccinated. If you want the vaccine, I want you to have access to it. If you don't want the vaccine, I don't care. That's your business. Here's the thing though. Joe Biden is a liar who promised before the election that he would not enact a national mask mandate, and now, after the election, he says he will. And the so-called public health experts say they need between 70 and 80% of the population to be vaccinated in order to create herd immunity against COVID-19, but a recent survey shows that only 47% of Americans are going to get the vaccination. So what are the politicians going to do then? When Joe Biden's arbitrary, unscientific 100-day mask mandate expires, and remarkably, that doesn't cure everybody and the virus is still circulating, what are the politicos going to do? They're going to grant themselves power in vague, all-encompassing language like New York Assembly Bill 11179 that gives themselves authority to force you, the 53% of Americans who are not going to get the vaccination or are not sure you want it, to inject yourself and your family whether or not you want the COVID vaccine. And the only way to stop them is to speak out now against this before they ram through Orwellian legislation like this bill in New York. Tell the New York State Assembly no on 11179.